Thank you, Madam Chair.
How
Thank
are
you
you?
so much. I am doing great. This is something a little bit different. I know you've had a heavy couple of hearings so far this morning. This is different. It's also very important to this group of people that's in front of you today. So for the record, I'm Delegate Michelle Guyton from District 42 in Baltimore County, and I'm here to thank you for your very thoughtful and consideration of House Bill 456, requiring pharmacies to provide notice to customers of the availability of accessible labels for visually impaired for the visually impaired and blind for prescription drugs. So this bill also requires pharmacies to print the label upon request. And I think you can all understand how for a blind or visually impaired person, the lack of accessible labeling may actually not only lead to illness, but could actually lead to death. There are many different kinds of prescription labels and labeling devices. You will see some of those. We're going to just demonstrate that for you. And they are available, some of them at no cost to pharmacies and to customers. They range from actual stands on which the bottle can be placed to simple apps that you can download onto your phone for free. Some pharmacy brands, and I will say CVS, actually advertise on their website the widespread availability of these bottles, right? But in fact, it turns out that the pharmacies who are actually willing to print these labels are actually fairly widespread apart. It is not as accessible as they would like for you to believe. So in addition, even if they do offer this service, many of their customers aren't aware of the fact that they can request this. So included in your testimony from others is information from several sources that points out that this legislation is actually aligned with the industry's own best practices nationally, and that because a prescription drug label is considered a legal document, this bill helped bring Maryland pharmacies into compliance with federal regulations for prescription label accessibility that is required by both the American with Disabilities Act and the FDA Food and Safety Drug Act. So I ask for your favorable report on House Bill 456 that requires pharmacies to advise consumers that these readers are available and print them upon request. Pharmacies must also explain the available options and demonstrate the use of the device to the customers. So I'm going to turn this over to my panel. They are in the best position to explain why and how this bill can be implemented. Thank you.
Sean Johnson, how are you?
Finding yourself, thank you.
Good. You could, if you could give me your testimony, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me. I was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic when I was 17. And following such, I basically suffered and had to deal with the effects, the negative effects of diabetes throughout my adult life. In 2018, I went to the hospital with a diabetic ulcer on my foot that required, some surgery as far as basically rectifying it. I was told that there was a possibility that it might result in amputation. Caused a lot of stress. Several days later, while still in the hospital in recovery, I had a heart attack. I'm not sure if it had anything to do with the stress. At the time, I was 35. Was transported from Georgetown University Hospital via helicopter to Washington Hospital Center. Underwent a quadruple bypass surgery, woke up from the quadruple bypass surgery blind, diminished capacity with result to my arm because of the thoracic surgery, and then I could not walk as well. My legs did not work. So following a long stay in the hospital, about 3 weeks in the ICU and then in a step-down unit, I was told that due to my diminished capacities, I would not be allowed to return home due to the amount of care and the fragility of my condition. So I was forced to go to a nursing home. While in there, all of my medications, I was on about, oh my gracious, so many of them. About 12 or 13 different pills. Of course, my medication was managed by the nursing home staff. While in there,
It's okay. Take your time. Go ahead.
While in there, I got close to a couple of people that transitioned, and the place became, to me, an end of the line kind of thing, and I was only 35. I wasn't going to go for that. So I redoubled my efforts to hurry up and get out of the nursing home. April 4th, 2019, I got out. I went home with to my mother's house. However, I was completely dependent on her as far as taking all of my medications. All the bottles were the same. Sometimes the pharmacies would mix generic medications with the name brand medications, making it nearly impossible to recognize the pills from their shape. And I basically needed her to sort all of my pills and to tell me the time to take them, because some of them were take on an empty stomach, take with food, do not take so many minutes before you lay down to go to bed. It was very taxing. The Division of Rehabilitation Services put me in contact with Blind Industries and Services of Maryland, which is a blind rehabilitation center. They help us become more empowered and allow us to discover how to lead independent lives. From there, I learned about accessible labels for my medications, because I was there by myself, no support from my mother or family members, and all of the staff there were blind like me. Since then, I've been trying to go to pharmacies, request the labels. Most pharmacies don't know what I'm talking about at all, and then they're very dismissive about it. Like, we don't know what it is, and they drop the issue altogether. So I've only been able to find these accessible labels through mail service, and there are several barriers that come with dealing with mail order services with regards to accessible labels. When you need accessible labels, sometimes the doctors tell you to alter your medications, like how often you take them, which would cause your prescriptions to essentially run out faster. And a lot of these prescriptions are, again, life essential or even health essential. I am hopefully looking to get a kidney transplant, and I'm worried that some of my medications, if they're not readily available, could lead to loss of life, such as, the immunosuppressants and the anti-rejection drugs. So,
Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry, but we have a long day.
Gotcha.
And I was trying to be generous, but can you wrap it up, please?
Yes, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And look, thank you for sharing your experience. And you're a very strong man. You have been through so much.
Thank you.
Through so much. It's nice to see you here. And the fact that you came with all the struggles is very meaningful, okay?
Thank you.
On behalf of the committee, thank you for your testimony. May I please have the testimony from Ransa Ottman? If we could, the rest of the witnesses, if we could try to stick to the 2 minutes, please, that would be great. I allow Mr. Johnson to explain it really well. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ronza Othman. I am the president of the National Federation of the Blind of Maryland. NFB of Maryland is the state's oldest and largest organization of and for blind, low vision, and deaf-blind individuals. Members of our organization need access to medication both for routine health care and connection with blindness-related conditions such as diabetes. I am myself a cancer survivor, and I take daily medication to remain cancer-free. I also take, among others, medication for anxiety daily, a life-threatening dog allergy twice a day, and vitamin D once a week. I cannot read the printed information on my prescription labels, and I often don't know which medication is which or in which bottle. As you can see from the bottles in front of me and in this package, they all look the same from you from a distance. They all look the same to me close up. They also feel the same. If I take my cancer medication twice a day or at the wrong time of day, or at the same time as my vitamin D, I could die. If I take too much of my allergy medication, I could die. If I take too much or too little of my anxiety medication, or if I take it at the same time as my allergy medication, I could die. Or, in a better scenario, I would just be really sick. It doesn't have to be that way. I shouldn't have to risk my health and life every time I try to take the medications that are intended to keep me healthy and alive. Pharmacies can provide accessible labels on prescriptions that provide the same information that you see visually so I can take my medication safely. They're low-cost solutions and they will save lives. Some pharmacies already do this, but as you heard, not everywhere, and I can't use my local pharmacy, but I could go to Laurel and pay $40 via Uber to get there once a month, but no one else would have to do that. As a result, we ask, since this is a civil rights issue, since this is a health privacy issue, for a favorable report on this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for abiding by the timer. Thank you. Next, please, Melissa.
Hello, my name is Melissa Riccobono. I am a member of the National Federation of the Blind of Maryland. I'm a parent of 3 children. 2 are blind also. My husband's also blind. I'm here, I have a written testimony that talks a lot about why I think this is important, but I'm here mostly to demonstrate just how easy this can be done. This is a script talk machine. There is also an app, but I prefer the machine, so I'm going to turn it on here.
Script talk station ready.
Yeah, it says it's ready. I have a bottle of pills. This is a bottle that has an antibiotic in it. I have another medication that feels pretty much exactly the same as the antibiotic, and so whenever I get my pills together, I can just put this on the stand, press a button, and it scans it.
Melissa Riccobono. Medication. Doxycycline. Mono 100 milligram tablet.
So as you can hear, it's telling me not just what medication it is, it's telling me how many milligrams, and I can arrow through for warnings, refills, instructions, very important.
Take 1 tablet by mouth, twice daily. Quantity, 60. Prescription date. Use by November.
Tells me
Refills remaining. 0.
all the things that you need to know. It also has warnings, and this is very important because I actually listened to those warnings and realized that I'm not supposed to take this medicine at the same time that I take zinc. And I've been doing that, and so I stopped doing that, and hopefully I won't have any ill effects, but I would not have known that was even an issue. My doctor did not tell me that, and so it's very good to have these things, not just for me, for my children, so that I can make sure that I'm helping them take their medications in the right way, and for my daughters who are blind to show them how to take their medication the right way and how to be in control of their own health care. I'm very lucky to have a pharmacy that gives these labels. This should be available everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that. We really appreciate it. Now we're going to open it up for questions. Are there any questions for this panel? Delegate Rosenberg?
Questions for the sponsor, Delegate. If I heard you correctly, you said that the failure to provide these labels is in violation of federal law?
I'm sorry, I almost touched the button. Yes, actually, prescription labels, because they're considered an actual legal document, are covered under the ADA and under the FDA Food and Safety Act. So this is something that, like I said, many prescriptions, you can get this in many different pharmacies, but not in all. And as we've heard from our testimony today, many pharmacies have no idea that this even exists.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Do you know if the groups you're working with have pursued federal action because of this violation?
I will direct that one to the Maryland Federation of the Blind. Do you know if anyone's pursued federal action? Because I'm not sure.
There's no, so it would be very hard to pursue federal action because the enforcement mechanisms in the federal statutes are virtually non-existent, and they leave it up to the states in terms of how the states need to implement them. So essentially, This is why we're here. We need you.
Sure. Delegate Kaiser.
Madam Chair. Delegate Guyton, thank you for this bill. Can you please explain, like, the item that the woman to your left showed with all of us? Delegate Guyton, can you explain, like, how much did that cost and how easy is that, would that be for any pharmacy to have that type of machine?
So the machine itself is free to me as a consumer. The pharmacy does need to have the labels for the machine. I am not sure, and maybe Delegate Guyton knows what the cost is to the pharmacy, but I know that there are some grants and things that do make these free. I'm not exactly sure. It's, okay, so Envision America, which is the manufacturer of this device, this is called Script Talk, they say the cost is really negligible. And it basically just means having a sticker that's scanned, it's on the bottom of the bottle, and they just need to type when they're making, so this bottle also has all that information in print on a label, and so they would just need to type it in a different way. It's a barcode, and then it just, so it's really not, I mean, technology's here. The other thing is, I would just say that seniors especially, I mean, Sean gave a great example about needing to stay, needing to be home, needing to have somebody else help him with this medication. Doing a label, the Script Talk's not the only way to do this. We'd love to have it available in large print for seniors, and that would just mean, I would guess, somehow getting the font bigger on a label. I mean, it's not, technology is our friend, and this should not be difficult, and especially for seniors that maybe don't even realize how hard it is for them to see things that they used to see just fine. I think having a large print label could be a huge blessing to them and a huge lifesaver in some situations. And then maybe that would eventually get them ready to embrace, hey, maybe I should just have it read to me. But, there's so many other ways, and I just think it's so important and so critical, and it should not cost pharmacies. In fact, the pharmacy I use is a small business, and if they can do it, I would guess that these chain pharmacies all over the place should be able to do it very easily.
Thank you. That was a great answer. If I could just add.
No.
Okay. About the bill. Okay.
Only one witness, because we'll be here. We have still 13 bills.
Offline, Delegate Kaiser. I can
Thank
answer
you.
that.
Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Guyton, and thank you all the panelists for coming here. So it's a great idea. The pharmacists are saying, unfunded mandate, insurance companies should be able or should be required to pay us for any additional costs. Can you get for the committee any information from that manufacturer or anyone on what the actual cost might be for a pharmacy and whether or not it requires that they purchase new technology? Is it possible?
Thank you for asking that question, because it actually is a follow-up for Delegate Kaiser's question as well. Yes, so for Envision, and you can even search this online right now, these are actually offered free of charge to pharmacies and consumers. CVS, for instance, offers it free of charge, even the device that you can keep the entire time of your prescription. So if it's 20 years that you're on the drug, you get to keep the device. The apps are free of charge. And I think there was some confusion because I did meet with Maryland pharmacists after they put in, I met with them on Monday after they had submitted their unfavorable testimony. So hopefully they will mention that. And we did talk about the sort of devices that we're considering here. And they were under the assumption that we were asking them to get braille writers and huge complicated technology. That is not what this bill does. This can all be done on a computer, a QR code added, just like we added to a lot of our different things. So this is really a cost-effective way of doing this. But I can get you actual numbers. We're working on that now. But many of them are free, otherwise minimal.
Delegate Olston.
Thank you. Well, Delegate Kaiser asked my first question, so thank you for that. After your conversation with the opposition, have you all worked it out and come to a resolution that everybody's agreeable with?
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I appreciate that they did come to me. And even as, and I'm not sure who's here today, but even as they were leaving, we all agreed we should have spoken earlier before the testimony went in so that they could understand the parameters of the legislation. And they were doing the same research we're talking about right now because they really were under the assumption that it was it was going to be a very difficult thing for them, and when in fact that's not what that's not what we're hearing from pharmacists who are doing this now. That it's really a simple adjustment.
Delegate Bagnall? Okay, great. Any other questions? Seeing none, Delegate, I'm going to call the favorable with amendment. I would encourage you to meet with them before the bill is assigned to subcommittee and make sure you work it out, okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and
My
thank you,
pleasure.
committee.
And thank you for your testimony and your patience.